Hi, this is Starkey Sowers. Welcome to the Nutrition Mission Podcast from Clark's Nutrition and Natural Foods Market. So the idea of this, Jessica, is to bring all sorts of things to the public's view as well as to some audible situations. So if you're driving down the road or you're doing this, you can listen to some of the episodes. We're going to have all sorts of topics, everything from like tea to sports nutrition to keto diets and the popular diets of the time. You excited for this?
So excited. So make sure you guys subscribe to our channel, and you can go find us on YouTube, like Starkey said. So are you guys ready?
All right.
We're all about the Nutrition Mission.
All right, guys. I thought today we would talk about magnesium. Magnesium literally was like this supplement that you occasionally pulled off the shelf and sold to somebody, as well as always a component that was in calcium for years. And all of a sudden, about 15 years ago, the shift to magnesium is the primary supplement over calcium and magnesium, over calcium, really increased dramatically. And it was really kind of strange. It was kind of like we watched like this 10-year shift. And so I think we talk now more about magnesium than we ever talked about calcium. So let's talk about some of the reasons as to why that probably happened. Number one, obviously magnesium is a different mineral than calcium. Calcium, of course, much popularity throughout the years, especially in reference to bone metabolism, osteoporosis, things of that nature, right? So there's a study that comes out, I think it was roughly about 2006 or something like that. And basically in the study, it basically said, look, here's the deal. Calcium, whether supplementation or dietary consumption, but more prevalently with individuals that were supplementing, seemed to increase the hardness of some of the heart valves with individuals. And so like the world went into a panic and basically said, oh my God, I'm going to get heart disease, from all this, of course, Dateline or whoever else that was out there started saying oh my gosh, watch your calcium supplements. Don't do this, don't do that. So ultimately I dig into it, write a particular piece of paper on it. Actually, a couple of different things. First of all, the American Pediatrics Association, as well as the Osteoporosis Foundation, everyone says, nah, we've looked at the research. It doesn't seem to be substantial. Ultimately, a couple of caveats that were in the study. Number one, they were using straight calcium. We find some other studies that actually use calcium along with vitamin D. One of the problems that happens with calcium if you're absorbing it is you want to get it to the right location. So let's talk about calcium a little bit. What does calcium do? Obviously, 99% of your mineral mass that's in the bone tissue is a large percentage of calcium, right? So one of the things that it does too is it buffers the pH in the blood. So that means like if you're too acidic or if you're too alkaline, in and out goes calcium, and it's regulated by the thyroid and the parathyroid. All right. So that's the technicalities. To get calcium into the system, vitamin D is necessary for the transportation of calcium through the intestinal tract and into the bloodstream. It's also necessary for the vitamin D to be there to get calcium into the bone tissue. One of the things that we didn't know or did know and really didn't accentuate on for years is vitamin K2 as well is needed for the synthesis of calcium into the bone tissue. So oftentimes one of the lacking components with calcium, so to speak, in calcium metabolism, if there's insufficient amounts of vitamin D and vitamin K. As you know, 70% of the world's or the United States population is vitamin D deficient, which would tell us specifically that there's some complications with our diet as well as our photosynthesis process of vitamin D. What does that mean? You go outside, your body takes cholesterol that's in the skin, converts it into a provitamin D substance, sends it to the liver converts it into vitamin D, the kidney finally puts its polishing touches on it, and then you have active vitamin D. All right, big steps. So what happens here when most people go outside in the sun and put on sunscreen? Guess what? It blocks it. The other thing is nowadays, everyone just sits inside and plays like video games and does all these other different things so they don't get the vitamin D that they needed. And so, yes, 70% of the United States, including children, are typically vitamin D deficient. Heads up, we did something on vitamin D a while ago and vitamin K. If you want to go back and look at those segments, you're welcome to do that. All right. So now let's get on to magnesium. All right. So calcium and magnesium work together. Calcium helps with the contraction of muscle. Magnesium helps with the relaxation of muscle. It's said that magnesium is a calcium channel blocker. For those that have blood pressure issues, you know what that means. It's one of the medications that they might give you to relax your blood vessels and lessen the blood pressure. Now, when I said it's a a calcium channel blocker, that doesn't mean that's a prescription that you want to replace your prescriptions by using it. But if you do use magnesium, you definitely want to pay attention because your blood pressure might actually go a little bit lower. All right. So let's talk about what started the craze on magnesium, though. So not only the calcium study, the other thing that happened, there was a guy named Dr. Peter Gilead. And this guy literally starts talking about magnesium as being the primary thing that Americans are lacking. So let's dig in a little bit. First of all, let's talk about where magnesium ends up. 60% of magnesium ends up in the skeleton tissue, like calcium. 30, by the way, it's much less than calcium. 30% ends up in the tissue such as liver, heart, and muscle. Anywhere there's going to be needs for coenzyme action for making energy, and that's going to be in the liver. The other area specifically is anywhere the muscles are at, you're going to find magnesium in abundance, right? What are the needs of magnesium? Well, typically they're coenzymes, so they help with the citric acid cycle. What does that mean? It means if you have proteins, fats, and carbohydrates in your diet, the body ingests them, digests them, sends them to the cells. The cells, once again, almost like the digestive system, breaks it down into finite chemical energy. In order to do that, you have to have magnesium. All right? Heart, muscle, and physiological calcium channel blocker. We kind of gone through that. Blood vessel vasodilation. So it opens up the vasodilation or opens up vasodilation of the blood vessels. As I said, it can lower blood pressure. All right. Nerves, it actually regulates dysfunction in the nerves. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. There's a specific type of magnesium that works very effective on brain nerves. All right. So it works on what we call depolarization in the nerves. The other thing, obviously, it's part of the structure, bones, teeth, things of that nature. Let's talk about diet. Commonly, most people are deficient in magnesium. They don't get enough. All right. And so one of the reasons why is abundant plant and animal foods is where you'll find it. So what I said by plant foods is this: fruits and vegetables. All right. A lot of people don't eat fruits and vegetables. In fact, one of the best ways to get magnesium is green foods. And so you might say, well, I don't eat green foods. Well, guess what? You're probably going to be deficient in magnesium. The other thing, believe it or not, is from water. Now, here's what's interesting with water, and it's not a huge source, but it's a decent source. Here's what happens with water. Obviously, when you get spring water, you've got lots of magnesium, because remember, magnesium is in rock. And so water is next to rock, so it picks up the magnesium, all right? So what happens with most of these new waters that are out, and a lot of times the waters that are shipped to the house, they do reverse osmosis. They remove all the minerals out because you wouldn't have dirty water, right? You wouldn't want to have minerals in your water because ultimately you need those. But what happens, a lot of the water sources, oftentimes they're from polluted areas. So we don't want certain things in there. So we filter it out. We use reverse osmosis. Well, filtered water is different. A lot of the minerals stay with filtered water. And so you can actually look on the side. Once again, everyone just cringes when I say this. My favorite water is Crystal Geyser from the Eastern Sierras. I love it. It's full of minerals or dirt, however you want to look at it. All right. I like to think of it as dirt. Dirt's good for you. All right. So one of the other things that happens too is absorption issues. A lot of times people have a tough time absorbing nutrients. Their digestive tract as you get older might be a little bit messed up. You're probably going to have a little bit less ability, so to speak, to be able to absorb magnesium. So let's talk about foods other than fruits and vegetables where you might get it. As I said, animal products have it. So when it comes to like animal meats and things of that nature, typically there's going to be some magnesium in there as well. So if you're vegan or vegetarian, you're probably going to have less susceptibility to be able to get an animal source of magnesium. So let's talk about some other foods, all right? Soy, rice, wheat, sunflower seeds, lentils, walnuts, almonds, and as I said, water. So let's look at this though. Let's look at sunflower seeds, and let's look at rice, and let's look at wheat. And first of all, let's look at the grains. Grains have what is known as phytic acid. So if you're not cooking that grain in a particular way or in a very long term, like when I make brown rice, I literally cook it extra long. Specifically because I know you've got to hydrate that outside of the brown rice to be able to open up and reduce the phytic acid from being able to pinch off and be able to prevent you from absorbing the minerals that are in there. So the other thing is soaking them overnight. Another great way to do it. So if it's oats or things of that nature, soaking your grains is a great way to ensure that you're going to get more nutrient absorption. All right. So let's also talk about this. Who would need an increased need for magnesium? Number one on the list, athletes. Anybody that's working out on a regular basis, you need more. There's no question about it. Any Person that's rapidly growing. What does that mean? That means babies. That means pregnancy. And that also means teenagers that are rapidly growing. They're going to need more magnesium. All right. So the other thing is people that are taking certain types of medications, such as laxatives and diuretics and things of that nature. Anybody that's got hypothyroid situations, inflammatory bowel situations, and people that drink alcohol. Is there anybody left that doesn't need it? It's not looking very promising at this point. What are the symptoms of deficiency? Well, symptoms of deficiency can be a lot of different things, but here's the list that goes on. First of all, muscle cramps and or spasms, personality disorders. Whoa, wait a minute. So personality disorders. Yeah, believe it or not, magnesium, one of the things it does is it works in the brain. And what it does is it balances out the neurotransmitters in the brain. And so remember, those neurotransmitters are going to be things that create mood, happiness, pleasure, things of that nature. And magnesium is one of the things that actually balances it out. Calcium and magnesium work in the brain, and they also help to regulate attention. So like if attention's a problem, you might be magnesium and you might even be calcium deficient in that particular situation. So the other thing that as a common occurrence why people will come into the stores to buy it is for heart situations, whether it's blood pressure, arrhythmias, things of that nature. Obviously, if you're having arrhythmias, you definitely want to check with the doctor, make sure that taking extra magnesium, might be something that he would get behind, so to speak, in the project. All right, now let's talk about how much do you need a day, all right? Male and female, pretty similar. Males need about 300 milligrams a day. Females need about 270 to 300. A decent diet, which should provide that. If it's whole foods, whole grains, if you're eating grains, if you're not eating grains and you're doing keto or paleo or something like that, then you got to be aggressive on the vegetables, as well as like the root vegetables and things of that nature. And obviously you're eating meats and things of that, so then you'll get an abundance of there as well too. So let's talk about therapeutic dosages. Therapeutic dosage. So that means you're taking this in addition to whatever you're getting in the diet. So typical therapeutic dosages are going to be about 250, maybe 300 to 1,000. All right. And so ultimately a couple little things. I just throw little caveats out with it. Number one, if you're using large amounts of magnesium, it can be a laxative. In fact, it can be a very strong laxative. So if you're going to use higher dosages for whatever reason, you want to spread it out throughout the day, take it with food, and actually let the body absorb it more ergogenically, so to speak. It's just going to be something that would be easy for your body to absorb. All right. So other prevention ideas as well too. Diabetics usually need 10 to 30% more magnesium than the typical person. Type 1 and type 2 included in that. All right. So the other thing that's in there as well too, people with kidney stones. If you've ever had a kidney stone, life sucks. All right. I've had a kidney stone. I thought I was going to go nuts. It was like crazy. So one of the things that happened is I looked at my diet, my supplement consumption, things of that nature. I really wasn't consistent on magnesium. So I got this back in 2014. So it's roughly been about 8 years ago. Started using magnesium on a regular basis. Haven't had one since. And I have hydrated better than ever before. Happy to say it's been successful so far, but I definitely got to keep on pace. All right. Individuals with heart disease, a lot of times, as I said, arrhythmias and things of that nature, people come in the door looking for it. Hypertension. So especially hypertensive individuals, maybe people that have stress, oftentimes lack magnesium. So it's definitely a spot to look at. People with anxiety, insomnia, and also mood situations might benefit from using some magnesium. All right. The other one too, obviously PMS for premenstrual syndromes, muscle cramping, as well as osteoporosis. So here's a little interesting caveat. Using magnesium actually lessens the need for calcium for people. If you have an abundance of magnesium in the system, then the body doesn't release out as much calcium. And so what that means is this, it actually helps the body maintain the calcium balance more efficiently. For years, obviously, supplements on the shelf had calcium and magnesium together. So if you're supplementing calcium, the magnesium was an adjunct that went with it, making it something that was really critically important. Obviously for the muscle contraction. At the same time, also for bone, remolding and bone building, so to speak. All right, so calcium, magnesium, still very popular combination that a lot of people buy. But let's just talk about magnesium. So one of the things I wanted to do was this. I wanted to, first of all, show you the product that literally revolutionized the world when it came to magnesium. This was the Dr. Peter Juliad product. He called it Calm. What a great name, okay? Anti-stress drink mix, it says at the top. And literally, this is just magnesium carbonate. 325 milligrams, 2 teaspoons. His recommendations on this particular product, I think he recommends like 1 dosage a day. Yeah, 1 dosage a day or up to 2 a day, and ultimately kind of spacing it throughout the day. This hit the market. It was a landslide. We literally had 4-foot by 8-foot shelf sections full of every flavor, every type he's got. And in some of our stores, we still have 2 or 3 shelves just of this product. Obviously, many companies have come behind to compete with it. They came out with like magnesium citrate, saying it's better than magnesium carbonate. So let's talk about sourcing. A lot of people want to know about sourcing, so I think that's critical. What we're going to do is kind of finish this game up, so to speak, with sourcing. First of all, what is magnesium carbonate? Well, it's also what they used to call dolomite. What is dolomite? It's ground up rock, okay? You're eating rocks, right? So obviously that's where you get it. So when you eat green vegetables and grains and things of that nature, they take the rock or take the nutrients out of the rocks that they're given, and then they put it into the plant. Kind of a nice way to get it. Tastes a little bit better, all right? So dolomite was something that was used back in the 70s and the 80s. Problem with dolomite, anytime you have rock or anything that comes out of the ground, it has a bunch of lead in it, okay? And when I say lead, remember this. The body doesn't absorb lead when there's calcium present. So remember, dolomite has calcium and magnesium. So the body's propensity to absorb the lead is very low, all right? Because they compete for uptake. That said, ultimately, dolomite really never led to any lead toxicities, but everybody freaked out and ran from it. And so we came out with purified versions. So calcium carbonate is a purified version of our dolomite rock. And there it is on the shelf, revolutionized the world. You should have heard the testimonies, people coming and going, oh my God, I take that stuff. I sleep better. I feel better. My mood's more stable. I mean, all these little caveats that everybody was talking about. All right, so now let's stretch it a little bit further. I did a current research on different types of magnesium back in the day, and still to this day, there's different companies that have like made different formulas with magnesium, trying to enhance or increase the absorption of it. A couple of things we know, almost all, even including dolomite or rock, is actually fairly well absorbed, especially if the body needs it. That said, what the body does when it ingests or takes in magnesium, usually, especially with a meal, proteins or amino acids are freed up. And what they basically do is they circle around the minerals, whether it's calcium or magnesium, or whether it's iron or whatever the case might be, and create what is known as a chelate. And that chelate basically is like claws. They like attach onto it. And then the body absorbs them very nicely into the system, right? So chelating magnesium seemed like a great idea in the late 70s and early 80s. A couple of companies came out with it. And then they studied their products to see if they actually absorb better. So here's a great one, calcium citrate. Calcium citrate is where you take calcium and citric acid, literally react it. Not all the companies react it, by the way. Some companies just put citric acid in the tablet along with it. But if you fully react it, citric acid is a natural compound that's a chelating agent, increases the absorption of it pretty efficiently, all right? Here's a branded ingredient from a company called Albion Minerals. These guys have been around, like I said, since the 70s and 80s. This particular one right here is a magnesium bisglycinate. They also make a magnesium lysate, and there's Doctor's Best that has that. Both those amino acids, glycine and lysine, ultimately claw onto it very effectively and deliver it. One of the objectivities, though, is that it delivers in different areas. The glycine seems to get into the bloodstream very effectively, also delivers into the muscle tissue very effectively, the lysine as well as the muscle, but also the brain, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well, too. There are other different types of liquid magnesium. Malate, another one, and we're going to talk about magnesium malate specifically over here a little bit later. So magnesium malate is a very absorbable form along with magnesium glycinate. So here's the caveat that you actually look at. All of them deliver very well into the system. Once you take a magnesium supplement, you're going to see it go into the bloodstream. You're going to see it go to the muscle tissue. You're going to see it go to the heart tissue. The other thing that you're going to see as well is you're going to see it go to the brain, okay? One of the things that obviously people use it for is muscle relaxation. Probably about 10 years ago, they came out with this, very interesting, magnesium oil. And it's literally like an oil compound that's got magnesium in it. So you spray this stuff on, and it's specifically for like muscle aches and muscle pulls and things of that nature. You want to shake it up pretty decently, spray it on. And so what's weird about it, it has like an oil composition to it. And the idea would be that it absorbs into the skin. And for those that you can view, you'll actually see this stuff is really super oily. It kind of gives me almost like a stuttering on my nose, so to speak. It has a different, unique smell to it. People rage about this. They use it like post-workout. They use it also for like pre-workout if you've got muscle pulls or tears or something of that nature. It's an interesting compound with a direct effect. All right. Finally, this is a fun one. Life Extension, Jarrow, a bunch of companies have come out with magnesium, and they have different names for it. First of all, this is a magnesium threonate, or threonate. Threonine is an amino acid that actually delivers magnesium to the brain. It crosses the blood-brain barrier very efficiently, delivers it to the brain, helps to really work very fast on those moods, as well as also like that mental alertness. It not only helps to calm the brain, it also helps to keep the brain more focused. So if you're looking for magnesium for mental effect, that would be the one you want to use. Finally, let's dig into some magnesium malate. A couple of different companies have that out there. This one being in liquid, this one being in tablet. By the way, the magnesium malate dosage, 3 tablets. Let's just double check this real quick. 1 to 3 tablets daily with meals. Sometimes recommended by physicians up to 3 or 6 a day. Why would they do that? Magnesium malate has lots of studies when it comes to fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, muscle pain, and there's all sorts of studies that have been around for years, and usually it's about 3 to 6 grams is the recommended dosage. And so a lot of times you'll see research on it, sometimes positive, sometimes not. A lot of times the dosing has been one of the issues. So when we look at magnesium malate, if you're one that suffers from fibromyalgia, things of that nature, you definitely might want to try it. All right, bottom line, make sure you're getting enough magnesium in. I think it's going to make a difference for your health. What source or what thing that you actually choose, it's kind of up to you. A little bit of a review kind of helps you out to be able to make a decent decision. But ultimately, my favorite I didn't bring, it's called ZMA, especially for athletes post-workout. It's one of the best ones to use. That's what I use on a regular basis. It works well for me. All right, thanks for watching and listening to another episode of The Nutrition Mission.